32 teams in 32 days. This is episode 26, the Green Bay Packers episode. Let's welcome in Eli Berkovits, writer for Packer Report and the host of Open Book on Game On Wisconsin. Eli, what's going on?
Hey Jake, how you doing? Thanks for having me on the show. I'm really excited to talk some Packers football. I know the NFL's been a bit quiet lately, but we got the draft coming up in a little less than 2 weeks, which is obviously exciting. So yeah, definitely still a lot to talk about.
Yeah, obviously great to have you in. So, the closest the Packers have been to making the Super Bowl since the Seahawks game in 2014 seemed as if they were going to make the comeback. What was your reaction and I guess the consensus reaction amongst the fan base when the game was over against Tampa?
So I live in Chicago, but I actually drove out to Green Bay for the game. I wasn't in the stadium, but I was at some bars surrounding the stadium. So to be honest, like it was just so much chaos, or like it didn't even really hit me probably until a couple hours later. But it was rough, man. Obviously, you got the decision to kick the field goal there at the end, and you know hindsight's always 2020, but in reality, to take the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands at the 8-yard line to kick a field goal and then still need to score a touchdown and give the ball to Tom Brady, there wasn't 4 or 5 minutes left. We're talking about literally just over 2 minutes. Think about 2 minutes and 4 seconds. So yeah, that's just a recipe to lose a game. And I think that's maybe where Matt LaFleur's inexperience showed a bit. And hopefully he learns from that and they get another shot at it.
Yeah, so let's just get this out of the way. Aaron Rodgers trade rumors. I mean, he's under contract for until 2024. There's no way he's not a Packer for life, or at least a Packer until the end of this contract, right?
I hope you're right. I really hope you're right. I'm as big of an Aaron Rodgers fan as you'll find. I think, look, Jordan Love, he could be good, could be a great guy. I don't think he was the right pick. I understand Rodgers was coming off two quote unquote down years, which, as he said on Pat McAfee's show, down years for him are career years for other quarterbacks. And they went and they took Jordan Love. And, I would rather, as a fan, watch the Packers eat that pick, admit as an organization, maybe we jumped the gun on the quarterback thing and stick with Rodgers. He just came out, had the best season of his career, won the MVP, was a few plays away from the Super Bowl. Maybe if David Bakhtiari never gets hurt, that could be a very different game. Rodgers had a lot of pressure on him that entire game. The tackles did not hold up. So, in my opinion, I think it's going to be very interesting. I think it's really going to go one or two ways. It's either going to get pretty ugly between the Packers and Rodgers. He's going to want them to commit. They won't. They'll continue to keep Love around the way that they kept Rodgers around with Favre. And eventually Rodgers will leave. And it probably won't be pretty. And I don't really like talking about that scenario. Or Rodgers has another killer year. And I think the Packers maybe see, okay, we still have a window here. Maybe let's trade Love, get what we could get for him, and let's continue to push with Rodgers.
So yeah, so basically what you're saying is they're gonna eventually just have to say, okay, Aaron, we're committed to you. And by drafting a quarterback in the first round when you're still a playoff team isn't really a great way of doing that.
Yeah, I cannot disagree, agree more with you. The night of the draft, I mean, I have a video somewhere, of when the pick came in, and you see it's like my eyes rolled in the back of my head. Like I know, yes, there's always a chance, and there was a conversation about it, but I prepared for the draft for months. I had broken down film. I've looked over hundreds of prospects, and to be honest, I never even took a look at Jordan Love. I really didn't. In my head, it was like there's no way they could really go and draft a quarterback when they were a game away from the Super Bowl, knowing that whether it was a receiver or a middle linebacker or a defensive tackle, a cornerback, a player that was going to play, they were a player or two away. And they drafted someone obviously that wouldn't play it down, wouldn't even put on a jersey. So it really surprised me. But as much as that surprised me, I think their following two picks are just as interesting. I mean, yes, AJ Dillon, now the pick looks a lot better after, Jamal Williams leaving in free agency. You've got Jones and Dillon, which should be a good duo. But just in terms of, like you said, trying to win in a 1-year window, you drafted a third string quarterback, a third string running back, and then a tight end fullback hybrid after just drafting a tight end in the third round the previous year. So I really thought the whole draft was very confusing. Going into the draft, I said the three biggest positions of need for me were wide receiver, cornerback, and defensive tackle. They didn't draft a single one of those positions throughout the entire draft. So I'm just hoping this year is a little bit more, just on par with what would be normal.
So before free agency even started, the Packers surprised a lot of people by re-signing Aaron Jones, 4 years, $48 million. I'm normally a part of the don't pay running backs group, especially when it comes to this and the AJ Dillon pick a year ago. What were your thoughts on this move, and why do you think it was so important to them?
Well, first off, I'm with you, Jake. I'm a pretty strong member of the don't pay running back group, and maybe I'm biased because I watch Aaron Jones more than other guys, but there are a select few of running backs that I do say are worth paying for. Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook. I understand injuries play a factor at running back more than any other position, but Aaron Jones has stayed healthy for 2 consecutive years now. And just for me, I look at the contract. All he has is the $13 million guaranteed signing bonus. Nothing else in that contract is guaranteed. So that's big to start off with. And also, as great as Rodgers was last year, I said it all year on open book every single week. Aaron Jones was the engine that started the offense. Once Aaron Jones got going, it was unstoppable. It was, if the Packers won a game, Aaron Jones always had a good stat line, because once he got going, you got the play action going. Rodgers more confident, more time, because the defense can't bring as much pressure. So I know some people might have, turned their heads. I personally didn't even expect them to re-sign him, but I'm excited about it. I don't think they overspent, and I think he's that good where as long as he stays healthy, I think this won't be a contract that comes back to bite them.
I think that's what it's all about, right? It's not about the immediate impact of the contract. It's about whether or not it comes back to bite these teams. Like, we're starting to see the Zeke contract start to bite the Cowboys. It kind of
Yeah.
held them back in some Dak talks, Dak negotiations. And then I think last year, especially when Zeke was injured, was fumbling a lot, not having great games. We're starting to see that backfire. That'll probably lead more into this year. But for the Packers, for a team that's trying to win right now and can win right now and have won right now, it's definitely worth the risk in year one and most likely year two of that 4-year contract.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to. It's essentially a 2-year deal where after the second year, the Packers will really have the option of either moving on or there will be a big cap hit in that third year. So what you're essentially looking at is a 2-year deal for a tremendous running back. And like you said, they're in a winning now mode. And Aaron Jones is if there's one guy I want to hand the ball off to and I feel like I need to win, it's going to be him. If they just went straight to Dillon and then a bunch of rookies, you don't know what you're getting. Yeah, AJ Dillon had a great game against the Titans last year. It's the only game he's had any significant amount of carries. So you can't base his career off one game. I thought it was very key to get Jones back in there, and his relationship with Rodgers is obviously very important to the offense.
Yep. And one of the things that everyone was talking about, the Packers had two premier free agents, Corey Lindsey and Aaron Jones. They went with Aaron Jones. So Corey Lindsey's gone. Lane Taylor's gone. David Bakhtiari's injured, and we're not sure when he'll come back, what he'll look like when he does. I know Elton Jenkins can play all 5 O-line positions, but he can't play them all at once. What does the unit look like right now, and how pressing of a need is it?
So the way I look at it, I think Bakhtiari has a decent shot of being back there for week one, if not week one, within the first month of the year. So left tackle, even if it starts out as a depth guy, I'm slotting in Bakhtiari at left tackle. And the way I see it, it's going to be Elton Jenkins back at left guard. And I think they should be trying out Lucas Patrick at center, barring drafting a center, which is possible. There's been some mock drafts. I think, what's his name? Landon Dickerson, the center, is someone people have talked about. But on the roster, I would say Lucas Patrick at center. And then at right guard, I would go with John Runyon Jr., who played sparingly last year, but when he did, he showed some promise. He's obviously the son of John Runyon, who was a very good offensive lineman in the NFL for many years. I just see John Runyon Jr. as a classic Packers lineman that they got in the mid rounds, will be on the line for a decade, solid guard, Josh Sitton, TJ Lang type. And then at right tackle, you got Billy Turner. Again, all this could change. They could draft a right tackle and then slide Billy Turner to right guard. They could draft a center and then put Patrick at guard and have Runyon as depth. So there's a lot of moving parts, but the way I see it would be Bakhtiari, Jenkins, Patrick, Runyon, Turner, but without draft picks.
So Preston Smith got signed in 2019. He returns this year, takes a pay cut. Obviously thinks he can win a Super Bowl in what is most likely is his last year in Green Bay. How important was it to keep him around for one more year?
So I was amongst the group of Packer fans that honestly, like, I love the Smith Bros things and I love the energy he brings, but at the money he was going to get, I was kind of expecting him to be cut, and I was basically okay with that. But now that he's taken a pay cut, I mean, that's a big for me. Like, I don't look at him as a liability. He just wasn't as great as he was in 2019 and 2020. So even if you get 2020 performance out of him at that pay cut, you're in good shape. But honestly, I think you could have a better season. You're going to have Rashawn Gary, another year of progression, taking more attention from the defense. Zadarius Smith's obviously still there. Kenny Clark, we expect them to draft either an inside linebacker or someone along the line, take off some pressure. So I think Preston Smith should be the third behind Smith and Gary in the rotation now. But I do believe Preston Smith has value, and getting him at a pay cut was a good move for the Packers.
Yeah. So they also re-signed Kevin King, and that was mostly to the disgust of a lot of Packer fans. Talk to me a little about the status of the cornerback room right now, outside of Jairi Alexander, obviously one of the best around, and what happened to it last year?
Yeah. So look, last year, I think for the most part, it really wasn't that awful. I think we could talk about one game and a handful of plays, obviously being that title game, and that's where you'll find your problem. And yeah, look, I'm not going to lie. I had zero expectation that they were going to bring back Kevin King. I mean, me and my brother had this running joke, like, of course they're going to re-sign him because it's just classic Packers. But in my head, I'm like, you can't re-sign this guy right now after what happened in the championship game. But they felt different, obviously. It wasn't like it was a huge deal, so it wasn't a ton of money. So that I'm okay with. And overall, Kevin King, he's not an awful cornerback. Is he a Pro Bowler? No. Is he going to be the greatest? I don't know. But he can catch the ball. He leads the secondary in interceptions every year. And yeah, he had a couple bad plays at really bad time in a bad game, which sucks. But I don't see him as a huge liability. That being said, I would hope within the first two rounds, but really in the first round, the Packers draft a cornerback, someone like if they could somehow get J.C. Horn, that would be my dream pick, or a Greg Newsome, something like that. But they are going to need to draft another corner because I don't think Kevin King is going to be the long-term answer. And then behind him, you got Chandan Sullivan, who plays in the slot, who was pretty good, but he also obviously had a tough game against Tampa Bay. So they might draft, a guy like Trevon Merrick out of TCU who could play that nickel kind of position. And then one other guy I would say just to keep an eye on for this upcoming year is Kadar Holman, former 6th-round pick in, I believe, 2019. He didn't play a ton, but when he played, he kind of flashed off the screen. I think we'll see more of him this upcoming year.
Packers are picking at 29, 62, 92, 135, and 142 in the first 4 rounds. Immediately, what comes to your mind when you think about some positions that need to be addressed at pick 29, and which direction can you possibly see them going?
So first off, obviously nothing's guaranteed in life, but Brian Gutekunst has traded up in all 3 of his drafts so far in the first round as the general manager, and I expect that to be the same. So I actually don't think the Packers will pick at 29. I think they're going to pick most likely before 29, especially with all the compensatory picks they got. They have 10 total picks. So assuming they're picking somewhere in the low to mid 20s, I think is an area where if they trade up, they're going to target a cornerback, or maybe if an elite tackle prospect were to fall. I don't see them trading up for a receiver as much. I feel like if they were to draft a receiver, it would be more they're at 29. Some of the defenders they liked aren't there. There's no more good tackles. And they kind of break that trend of their own and take a first-round receiver for the first time since 2003. But I don't think they would trade up for one. So I see it as in first round, cornerback, tackle, receiver, at least what I think the Packers are looking at it. For me, I would probably flip tackle and receiver, get Rodgers another weapon, and get some offensive linemen in the mid rounds, which they've been very successful with in the past.
So who are some guys that you would, I guess, run to the podium for, is a phrase that I've used a lot over the last couple of days. So who are some of your guys at that pick?
Okay, so as I said, I do expect to trade up. So some of these guys, might not be realistic for 29, but they could be realistic for the 20s area. J.C. Horn, right off the bat, cornerback, son of former Saints receiver Joe Horn. He just looks like a physical freak. Exactly the kind of guy I would want on the Packers defense. If I'm looking at offense, Rashad Bateman out of Minnesota is someone I really, really like. I think he could be there. At 29, maybe a bit of a stretch, but they could probably trade up within 5 slots. He'll be there. That's looking at cornerback and receiver. Trevon Merrick, who's, kind of a safety hybrid linebacker kind of type. Someone that I know Joe Barry for his defense. He values that position very much. So I think Trevon Merrick is someone to keep an eye on out of TCU. And then just in terms of linebackers, I love Zaven Collins. I'm a huge fan of Zaven Collins. So he's someone that I would be very happy with if they finally address the middle linebacker position, which we obviously know they have not done for many years in Green Bay.
So I do this with everybody. I'm going to give you a couple prospects that could be there. So let's say they actually, okay. So let's assume that they're going to trade up, which you think they will. I think a lot of people kind of not assume that, but it's fair to speculate that with all those extra picks, with pressing needs, to say the least, on that roster, that they could definitely be trading up. So let's say they're at 22 and Tevin Jenkins is there, Merrick is there, and Rashad Bateman is there as well. Who would you pick of those 3? Or if you want someone else to be there, you can ask me and I'll tell you if he's there or not.
Out of those 3 who I personally would want to see, and whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing for the team, I would want to see Rashad Bateman. I would want to see for 2 reasons. Number one, I think he's a phenomenal player and he would immediately improve the offense and take a ton of pressure off Devontae Adams. But number 2, it would be showing Aaron Rodgers at least a modicum of care, saying, we're going to try to do something for you, considering the fact that we've never drafted you a receiver. Like you said earlier in the show, we were a game away from the Super Bowl last year. Instead of drafting you help, we got you 3 guys that essentially weren't going to play to start the draft. So I feel if you were to trade up and draft a receiver, like that's a move for Aaron Rodgers to say, okay, you know what? Maybe they do still have my back. So that's one. But if those three were on the board, unfortunately, I think the way the Packers would look at it, Bateman would probably be at the bottom of that list. I think they would probably look at Merrick, and then the offensive lineman, Tevin Jenkins, and then Bateman. So I think if that was the case, they would go Merrick. I think he's someone that would fit their defense really well.
Yep. Eli, great stuff, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Make sure to follow Eli on Twitter at bookofeli_NFL. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching this episode of 32 Teams in 32 Days. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.